Hey everybody, welcome to How I See It with Kevin Levrone, brought to you by Levrone Supplements and starring IFBB Hall of Famer, living legend in the sport, my man Kevin Levrone. How are you, sir? Yeah.
Doing good. Thank you. Good to be back.
Before we get started, I want to play, I was a little surprised at this tune. You just released another song, I think it was last week, right, on iTunes?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not like your typical Kevin Levrone song. I mean, I expect a certain sound from you, but this is more like the stuff I listen to when I'm trying to get hyped up.
Oh, really? Yeah.
This is hard stuff. Wait, listen to the vocals, guys. Wow. Wow. Okay.
Double duo. That's called double duo.
Double duo. So, where do they find it on iTunes?
Just go to iTunes
Yeah.
and punch in Kevin Levrone music,
Okay.
and double duo will pop up. I did that song with Raul Cruz and I. Double duo.
That's
Yeah.
that's your collaborator for a lot of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys do good work together.
Thanks, man.
That's
One
something
of those.
I would actually listen to that while I was doing a heavy set.
Yeah, it's one of those songs for in the gym. Hardcore.
Right on. Yeah.
Hmm.
You. It seems to be like no set schedule. You just like when you get inspired, you come up with something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about us, we don't care. Good or bad, spread it out everywhere. Competition runs in despair. It all comes together, yo. Double duo.
Cool stuff.
Been to back, paid my dues. Trouble Click M3 and out. M3 and Raul Cruz. Together we will never lose. It all comes together. Double duo.
Right on. Double duo, everybody.
Here we are, double duo. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good song. Just a song that I think everybody can relate to.
Yeah. No, you sound like it's a different sound for you. The vocals and everything. Usually, you sound more like Scott Stapp from Creed. A little bit. But this is totally different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's totally different, man.
How is your guy, Dexter Lewis, a.k.a. Flex Diesel, looking at, we're just about a week out from Tampa.
Yeah, I told him just to stay covered up, and just stay covered up. Actually, everyone can see that the Mr. Olympia pre-judging is already taking place online.
That's right. Who's winning?
All you got to do is go to Instagram.
Who you got winning the
Competition's already started.
Yeah, round one is the Instagram round.
Oh, yeah, round one's the Instagram round. It starts with working out in the gym. Then it starts with compulsory poses, front double biceps and lat spread in the rooms of whether in the gym or in the hotel rooms, wherever these guys would be. Then, round three is where you see the whole complete full bodies, and hitting shots.
I'm going to get ahead of myself because this was a question that I had coming up later, but I think it makes sense to talk about it now. Well, how would things have been different for you back in the 90s if there had been social media back then, where everybody could follow and see what everybody was up to every damn day leading up to a show?
I still think we would have stayed covered up. And maybe Sean Ray and maybe Flex would have been in the tank.
Yeah.
Which, I think they kind of train like that mostly. But for me, I was always covered up. I can imagine Dorian Yates would be covered up all the time.
Yeah.
Ronnie Coleman would probably seem like he would be a guy that would be in the tank top, But I think I would just stay covered up all the time.
I mean, in your videos, Baltimore is, I think, even worse humidity-wise than like Boston in the summer. It's pretty gross and sticky all summer long, and that's when you were training for the Olympia every year.
I always stay covered up.
But yeah, I remember your videos. You'd have these big hoodies on, and you had to be dying of heat in there. You had to be.
Yeah, I've always stayed, even when I'm not competing for a show, I never worked out in the tank top. Never. I just don't like looking at myself for some reason. Yeah.
How
about you, Ron?
Me? Hang on. I think people can. I don't want to change it. There we go. I'm afraid we're going to get reverb if I didn't do that.
Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
got my sweatshirt on today. You see that?
Exile Fitness. Exile Fitness. Now is that in Maryland or is that like a suburb of Maryland?
No,
Sorry,
it's in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
Pulaski Highway, Route 40, Pulaski Highway in Baltimore. Hardcore gym. It's the most hardcore gym in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah. How would you?
You know, you have Bev Francis, which is the Mecca up there in Jersey,
Yeah.
and then you have this gym here in Baltimore. Those are the only two I think on the East Coast that are hard.
Looking back, you had a powerhouse gym in Glen Burnie, right? Years ago, you had a gym many years ago, right?
Mine was World Gym.
It was a World Gym. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
What was How would you compare like your gym to some of these gyms out there now?
About the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Exile Fitness it's held on to that hardcore atmosphere of hardcore bodybuilding, the foundation. The music, the chalk.
Yeah.
The guys are in there. The average bencher can bench press 400. The average squats 600.
Oh boy.
All day long.
It's like the land of the giants.
It's a powerhouse. It's a gym that's a powerlifting mixed with bodybuilding.
Wow. Yeah,
the best atmosphere you possibly could be in.
Yeah, I can't think of any. There's probably only a handful of gyms like that in the country that have.
And they're open 24 hours all the time.
Oh wow!
As a matter of fact, right now we're expanding.
Huh.
They got a new building. Place is going to be huge, maybe 60,000 square feet.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
How late do you train sometimes when you're in there late?
Sometimes I'll go 12, 1, depending on how I feel, depending on my schedule with Gabe.
Yeah.
And his football and school and stuff, and then I'll go. Actually, I just got back into my training. I took off for a long time.
Really?
Now, yeah, I'm getting back into it, man, because I want to go after this bench press world record now.
Yeah. Which is when? September, October?
Sometime in September.
Okay. Yeah.
Towards the end, yeah. So I'm preparing for that right now.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we'll talk more about it as we get closer, because there's a lot of guys out there they're all about the big bench press, and they want to hear all about it, I'm sure.
Yep.
Let's get some questions. We got a good one from a guy named Ruben, who's a fan of yours from New Zealand. He said, "Hi, Ron. Hopefully I'm in time for your next Levrone episode." He actually submitted that right before we did the one with Flex Diesel, so all questions were held until the following episode.
Nice.
Can you ask him if he needed help with something bodybuilding related, like you did for Ronnie? Out of all the past Olympians, who would have been most likely to help? I'm guessing not Sean, since he wouldn't even give you a piece of orange. So if you had needed help, I know you didn't. I don't think you ever asked anybody for help, but who would you have asked that you think might have helped you out for advice? Or
Dorian Yates.
He actually did. He actually did help.
Yeah, he did. I went to England one time, and Dorian was the one that showed me how to do reverse bent over rows.
Yeah.
And I worked out with him, did a session like that. Yeah, Dorian Yates.
Yeah, and he said he probably wasn't the brightest idea, because that was the only thing he really dominated. Pretty much everybody on was the back. So
yeah.
If you ever had a back like him, ba-boom.
Yeah, we had a great session over there too, man. So, yeah.
Okay. He said, also, please share with Kevin, I just watched you receive an Arnold Victory Trophy, your second, on YouTube. After seeing your routine and hearing Arnold praising your conditioning and physique, I'm not sure. Is he talking about like when you won the Arnold years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. So he says, I just want to thank you again for allowing me to see you and Arnold on the stage again, physically in Australia, during that historic event. Yeah, he was very concerned that you were going to make it to that show, because he traveled over from New Zealand for that.
Oh, wow. I did it for the fans, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did it for the fans. I had that little pilot lit, the little flaming little burn down there. And the fans encouraged me to go and Born to Overcome and do that and everything. And I'm glad I did. Came out great. So
I mean, people saw you guest pose and everything here after, but I'm sure there's a lot of American fans who they always want to see you one more time. So you're never,
I know.
You're never going to make them happy unless you compete until you're 100 years old.
Yeah. Well, we'll be doing some things in the gym coming up for this powerlifting bench press thing that I got going up. So, they'll see me with my tank top off, training in the gym and stuff like that. That's what they want to see.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of weight, a lot of muscle, a lot of veins. I mean, that's what That's it, man.
Well, I mean, that's if you look at social media and who's popular, it's not even really the competitors. It's people want to look. They want to see the in the gym stuff, the training. That's why
Yeah.
millions of people will follow someone that posts stuff like that, as opposed to someone who just gets on stage once a year or something. That's so this is a guy that had a question. I answered it in one of my little shows, but he wanted to know your opinion on it too. Your thoughts on bodybuilders today and their extreme eating, chasing 10,000 calories a day and eating tons of shit food. Does that drive you nuts? Because on Instagram I said my biggest pet peeve is their cheat meal pictures, because they're so happy about eating these disgusting piles of slobbering, greasy, disgusting food. To me, and I'm an old man. I'm almost as old as you. It's, to me, that's so anti-bodybuilding, you know, to be glorifying bad food every day as a bodybuilder. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you know, when we dieted for a contest, we dieted. We didn't have cheat meals.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Big Rod in the gym today. You know, it was fish, rice, and broccoli for 8 weeks, 12 weeks. There was no cheat meals, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's not bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is suffering. Bodybuilding is discipline. Bodybuilding, when you're getting ready for a contest, is coming up with a plan, sticking to that plan until the day of the show comes. The cheat meal comes after the show.
Yeah.
You know, and then even then, you know, you still want to somewhat keep things in perspective, you know. So, you know, when you start throwing in cheat meals and stuff, you really got to know. I don't know, man. People do what they want to do, and certain things for attention. God knows what, you know.
Well, I mean, they justify it. They try to make it seem like they need these cheat meals, and even the coaches will say, "Well, you need it because your body gets used to your metabolism slows down, and this speeds up your metabolism." But you know, looking back at the guys from your era, like you and Sean and Dorian, who did not eat cheat meals, you kept losing fat. You ended up in shape at the show, and you know, you didn't flatten out, or you looked as good as anybody could look without cheat meals. So
without it.
So how do
you need to know what works for you. You need to diet. You need to not over diet, not do too much cardio. You need to have your calories high enough to where you won't flatten out. You need to have your good clean carbs up high enough. You need to have your water intake up so you don't flatten out. When you do these things right, the whole part of dieting is to lose fat, not to load your body back up with fat. So low fat, you know, go on a low fat diet, do your cardio in the morning on an empty stomach. You know, there's no, everybody wants to try all this fancy stuff and reinvent the wheel and everything. Look, in the morning cardio, an empty stomach, your blood sugar levels at its lowest point, do your target heart rate zone for burning fat. You know, I would do 25 to 45 minutes a day. You know, fish, rice, broccoli, 4 or 5 meals a day. You don't need 10,000 calories. I would do 4,800 calories, good clean calories. I'd walk on stage 248 pounds, 250 some pounds. I fed my body what it needed and what it could burn and what it needed to use. That's it. You know, there's nothing fancy to it. Eat clean, low fat, do your cardio. Your body's going to burn that fat for energy. That's it. Go in the gym, train heavy, load up on the protein that you need so the muscle can repair itself, and rest. And your body will start changing. That's it.
I mean, do you think people are just, I don't want to say pussies, but are they just afraid to suffer? Because you would diet on fish and like no carbs for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
While, you know, lifting these power lifter type weights in the gym every damn day and doing fasted cardio and all that.
You know, they just want to try to find this fancy way of doing things. And there's no fancy way. And that's why I always say, and everybody will agree to me, that's why hardcore bodybuilding is the roots to this whole thing that everybody's got going on now and everything else, and it'll never change. It always comes back to you can't get in shape unless you eat a good, clean diet. You stick to the good, clean diet. You do cardio. You drink water, and that's it. Your body will start to lose weight. People say, well, my metabolism slowed up. I can't. I don't look like this, or I'm not. You're not looking like that because you're not. Yeah, you're not eating like you should, man.
Yeah.
So give me somebody 400 pounds and put them on low carbs, fish, and broccoli, and water, that person will lose weight over 3 months, 1 week, or whatever it is. They're going to lose weight.
Right.
You know, point blank, period. Right, Ron?
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
And what's going to separate the champions from the people that don't are the ones that suffer and stick to the good, clean diet. You know, just don't cheat. I don't believe in the cheat meal stuff until maybe after prejudging.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
And even then, you got to be careful.
Yeah, if it's close, sure.
If it's close,
don't do it, dude. Okay, let's have some fun because Big Mike Cox wanted to hear some Euro tour stories from the '90s. So Peter McGuff piped up. He had a couple good ones. So Peter wants to know, does Kevin remember on the '94 Euro tour we had a 9-hour train journey from Milan to Nice? So that's Italy to France, and there was only one food trolley on the train.
Yeah, and I brought all the food.
He says you bought all the food and started selling it to hungry bodybuilders.
I did, because these guys, I remember Milos and Sonny Schmidt.
Yeah.
Those two would eat up. They were like carb. They love carbs, right?
Yeah.
So they would just eat up everything. Even NASA, you know, NASA had a thing about NASA. You put food in front of him, especially when you had to diet for a show. If you put something in front of him, it's hard for him to not eat it. And I knew this, and I was on tour with these guys. I'm like, all right, man, you guys are getting hungry, huh? That place, they don't have all that food up there is gone, right? Because I got all the food and everything. So they had nothing. We're sitting there, they're hungry. And the food that they had brought, I knew that it was going to run out over a period of time. So I went ahead and I brought all the food on the trolley on the train, and I just stored it away. And I said, oh man, by the way, I got some stuff right here, some potato chips or some, you know, tasty cakes and blah 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 blah. So I was loading them up with junk, man.
Oh, so it wasn't snack. It wasn't like chicken breasts and potatoes. This was like snack food.
No, yeah, junk. Anything that they had up there, yeah.
So you were actually selling it to them and sabotaging their condition at the same time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Master, brilliant. He told another story. He actually, I think he took a big piece out of a column that he wrote for MD years ago. But I want you to tell the story. This was the 1998 tour. Where was this? It was a Duisburg Ibis Hotel in Germany. So Ronnie was on this tour. You, Nasser, Cormier, Gunter, and apparently before the
it was Sonny Schmidt, and I'm sure Milos was on that tour too.
Okay. Well,
because Milos did a lot of tours with us.
So I'll just read the first paragraph, and then I want you to tell your version of the story, because I'm sure your version is better, or because it's your story. So it was 4 a.m. on the morning of Sunday, September 17th at Duisburg Ibis Hotel in Germany, when the likes of Ronnie Coleman, Nasser El-Somebody, Chris Cormier, and Gunther Schlierkamp were awoken by a woeful lament emanating from the corridor. That little guy snores like a big-ass cow. He kept me up all night.
Oh, yeah.
The complainant was Kenny.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Kenny Jones.
Kenny Jones, the
1996.
the polar bear.
He was a 1996 NPC bantamweight champ.
Yeah. I woke his ass up and I told him, go right out there. You call yourself a polar bear. I woke up. I couldn't deal with it no more.
Well, the deal was
he got stuck with me, rooming with me through the whole tour.
Well, he didn't have a room. That's what Peter said. He said he managed.
Yeah, he didn't have a room.
So
he didn't have a room.
You were nice enough to let him stay.
I was nice enough to let him stay, right? Because he's small. I thought he was going to be quiet and not get in the way.
Yeah.
That little guy had a big voice, louder than me, snored louder than I did. He was only about 4'11". Yeah. Snored louder than I did. Probably ate more food than I did.
Wow.
You know, yeah, he's an East Coast guy. Oh, man, I don't know about like little Popeye, you know?
Yeah.
So he starts talking about how he's a polar bear. So I woke him up and said, listen, man, go out there and jump in the middle of the there was a big fountain, water fountain.
Yeah.
In the middle of the hotel. It was cold. It was cold, right?
Yeah.
I said, take your chunks off. I said, take your shirt off, everything. Go out there and jump in that fountain. He went out there and jumped in the middle of the water fountain in the middle of the hotel, 2 or 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And just flopped around that thing for about 15, 20 minutes. And I was like, yeah, well, maybe that'll slow you up a little bit and you won't snore so much, you know?
So did you kick him out of your room? Did you let him stay in your room and you left?
No. I just put up with him.
Yeah.
Because he had some great stories.
Okay.
He had some great stories, how He was a polar bear. He was on a polar bear team. I don't know if you guys know what that means, but what that means is Kenny Jones was a guy that he could jump in ice cold water in the wintertime and swim across like the bay or the lake in the dead winter when it snowed. He would be out there on this team, and they would go out and jump in ice freezing water, wherever it was, Alaska, wherever, and just swim across the bay, swim across the ocean and stuff. Yeah. And that's what they did. You know, he was tough. He's a tough little sucker, man. That boy was tough.
I know he was tough. He had no fear because I saw him compete, and
he was tough.
He's probably $140 soaking wet, and he'd be up there like next to Marcus Rule and stuff.
Yeah, and you guys got to think back then. Kenny was a lot older than us. Yeah. You know, so Kenny was like he was an older guy. He was in his 40s out there with us.
I think he said he had been like he used to party at Studio 54, and he was on that show. He was on that show Dance Fever because he wasn't. His routines, there wasn't a lot of posing. It was all dancing around, like moonwalking. Oh, yeah. He'd get on the floor and do the worm, and he was a sight to see, that guy.
He was a character, man. I remember we'd be walking through the airport. He'd be in his posing trunks.
Wow.
We were going through the train station. He'd be in his posing trunks. He would take his shirt off.
Yeah.
Take his pants off. The only thing he'd be traveling around in on the airplane through the train station is him sitting there in posing trunks.
Wow.
With his luggage and stuff, carrying his luggage. Can you imagine that?
Did anybody say, Kenny, this isn't cool. You can't be. You got to cover up. This is.
No, I told him. I said, come on, man. I said, look, you got one unique personality. You look great. I says, man, show these people what you look like. He goes, oh, really? No problem. He goes, I'll take it off. I'll walk around like this all day. I said, go ahead, man, no problem. I'll go ahead and just show them what you look like. I said, you look great. So yeah, I edged him up, you know.
This sucks that there was no internet and like camera phones, because these would have been the best prank videos. These would have all gone viral.
Yeah, he traveled like that, man. I mean, with his posing trunks, his number attached to him.
Wow.
And hitting shots everywhere he would go, hit shots everywhere. In the airport, everybody would see him. You know.
So he was your roommate on that particular tour because he had no.
Yeah, very entertaining, man. We had fun. So I figured, make the best out of it.
Right on. Okay, another question from a guy named John Davis, I believe it's from my area. Do you think you should have beaten Paul DeMeo at the 1991 Junior Nationals?
I don't even think about it. Probably it's a good question. Out of every athlete that I've ever competed against, I never even thought about that competition. Probably because I was just so happy to be on stage at the juniors and to play so well. Paul had been there for years before me. Yeah. Had a little experience underneath his belt. Paul had a great posing routine. Legs were phenomenal. I didn't think I should have beat him that day. It played out the way that it played out.
Now he barely had a pro career, as you know. He did the Olympia, and then he did like one other Grand Prix show.
Yeah, his legs were had a lot of ahead of his upper body.
I mean, potential. How much potential you think? How good do you think he could have been if he had the right head, the right frame of mind, and maybe some better guidance?
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I couldn't read into the future with him. I just know that his legs were unbelievable.
Yeah, they were. Well, he was Quadzilla.
light years ahead of normal, and even pro legs today don't look like his.
Yeah. Sometimes I like on Instagram I see people calling themselves Quadzilla. I'm like, dude, you're not Quadzilla. Trust me. I knew Quadzilla.
Paul, he inspired me to work out harder because of his legs, man.
Yeah, there was something else.
Mm-hmm. Good guy too, man.
Yeah. Local guy. He was from Medford, Mass. Okay, so we talked about your Dorian in the back and everything. So a guy named Clayton West wants to know, looking back, do you think your back development was the reason you couldn't take the Olympia? Do you feel if you had a wider lat spread and thicker on the lower outside, it would have put your back poses up to... He just basically wants to know if you think, if your back had been like another level better than it was, you think that would have had you beating Dorian?
I think it would have helped. I think there was moments where my back was thick and full. Yeah. But looking back, things happened the way that they did. It just wasn't in my it just was not meant for me to be Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean,
and if I had won the Mr. Olympia in 1992 when it was wide open,
yeah,
I would have not competed anymore, you know. So I just continued to move on and to try to get better, and went on to win everything else around the world and competed around the world.
yeah.
But looking back now, it just wasn't meant for me to be Mr. Olympia, because that was my goal. If I had won Mr. Olympia, I would have never competed again.
And,
You know, yeah.
we talk about backs. I mean, you went up against the guy, the two of the men with, if you ask people who had the best backs of all time, the two names that come up the most are Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman.
Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman.
And those are the guys that you were second place to several times.
Yeah. So you really can't say my back was weak.
You know, that's
these guys. Yeah.
It's like putting your legs next to Paul DeMeo, Quadzilla. Everyone's legs are going to look, or Platts. Everyone's legs are going to look.
Yeah. Or telling someone that, you know, putting somebody's shoulder against mine.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
shoulders, triceps, traps. Yeah, you weren't beating Kevin Levrone on those.
Yeah. So I mean, I've gotten second against the greatest backs.
Absolutely.
Two of the greatest backs in ever in the history of our sport.
Yeah.
That ever have existed.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that I was getting second behind, and those are the guys that I was pulling lat spreads to, and that back double biceps with. So for me, I'm good. Yeah. I'm happy with the package and the genetics that God has given me. Made the best out of it, and I can't say shoulda, woulda, coulda. If I had did this, I did the best that I could do with the physiques and the time training and everything that I dealt with, and so did Sean, and so did Flex, so did Chris Cormier, and everybody else up there, NASA, and going down to what's his name, Raul, the German guy, Marcus Rule.
Marcus Rule, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The big, huge back.
Yeah, he was enormous.
So, you know. Yeah, enormous, huge lats. Remember how Marcus used to stand there? His lats would hang?
Yeah, I mean,
so
not many men have ever been wider than Marcus Rule.
No, so I mean, it's a whole complete package. Not only did Coleman have a big back and Yates had a big back, but they had everything else was complete. Right. You know, that matched on the body, and you know, it's just if you had a bet. I would never bet. I never thought that Ronnie would end up being 8-time Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
You know, Ronnie would be on the tour with us coming in dead last. 10th. How do you go from 10th in Olympia to first place? That's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I don't see anybody beating Phil or anything, but everyone's looking at Rami, or it's going to be. They're always thinking it's the guy who was second or third last year is the one to worry about, but. You never know. It could be somebody that was 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th that made these crazy improvements in a year.
I mean, Ronnie Coleman skipped over 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 5th, 6th, right? He went from 10th to 1st.
I think he was 8th, but still, that's a crazy jump.
From 8th from 8th to winning the Mr. Olympia 8 times.
Yeah, and he did it by beating Flex Wheeler was totally in line for that title.
Totally.
Everyone's like, okay, Dorian's gone. It's the Flex Wheeler era.
Because Flex came off that Arnold Classic win.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
Not only that, but he was phenomenal. He's like you and Sean. That's a guy that everyone said, this guy's going to be, he has to be Mr. Olympia. There's no way this guy can't be Mr. Olympia.
Exactly.
He's that good.
And boom, Ronnie out of nowhere.
Boom, exactly.
Never know, man.
A guy named John Smeaton wants to know, do you think you had better genetics than Dorian?
I'm not going to say that. Because Yates' genetics and my genetics, 2 different DNAs. I mean, look at his body. I mean, obviously, you could say he didn't have the most pleasing physique, the most pretty physique. But one thing he could get grainy. Yeah. He could build muscle. He had that mental genetic side of him that he could go through pain and suffering. Yeah. So when you talk about genetics, it's not only what the shape of the body. You're talking about, you know, how is that body developed? So Dorian Yates had a grainy look. He had thick calves. He had just this long muscle bellies to his quads, which they were long.
Yeah.
You know, he had this thick, genetically great, gifted back that was just raw piles of muscle that was piled on top of each other. You know, so those are genetics that I didn't have.
Right.
You know. So when you say who had better genetics, he had his genetics that made him great, and I had mine that made me great.
Yeah, I mean, you had the round muscle bellies, which he didn't have.
I had more of an athletic build, put it that way.
Yeah.
More like if somebody said, well, like I had more like of an athletic build, sprinter. Like I probably could do, play football and be a fast runner and all these things, which
You were.
I did have that. So Yates' genetics just is different, distinctly different than mine. When you look at me, you see an athlete. When you look at him, you see this raw guy that worked hard in bodybuilding, and his muscles just was raw and grainy looking. So it's different types of genetics.
I mean, do you roll your eyes when people occasionally you'll hear Dorian Yates didn't have good genetics? I'm like, really? He didn't? Come on.
Well, the first thing I think of is exactly like what I said. Like, there's different types of genetics. Of course he did.
Yeah.
Of course he did. He didn't have a natural lean built genetically look like a sprinter's body or a basketball or athlete or body or anything like that. But when you talk about genetics to build muscle and the things that he applied mentally, you got to have good genetics to build some kind of thick, freaky muscle like that man had. See, guys can say all the stuff that they want, but I stood on stage next to Dorian Yates.
Yeah.
And I stood on stage next to Phil Heath and these guys today.
Yeah.
In today's time. Right. So I'm the guy that went out there, and I actually feel the difference. It's a huge difference, standing next to Dorian Yates, and seeing him backstage than what I experienced in 2016
with Phil.
Yeah.
I mean, put it in this terms. Was Phil was he as intimidating?
Put it this way.
Yeah.
In today's times, everybody blends in.
Okay.
That's the best way I can describe it.
Okay.
Nobody's blown nobody out of the water. Everybody's blending in. That's how close it is.
Yeah.
But when it was Yates, that's, you see Mr. Olympia, that guy stood out like good grief,
And Ronnie too.
It was like it was a distance between, first and second. It wasn't close. It was just
right.
Man,
it was Dorian and everybody else.
You saw the king that was leading the pack, and he stood over there by himself. And he didn't need to mix and mingle with the rest of us that was fighting for our place. And I hate to say it, but it's the truth. Going through it and seeing it and living it, I think I could take this guy out. And there were moments where I thought I could and everything. But now you sit back and you think, wow, Dorian Yates he was ahead of us, man. He was light years ahead of us. Ronnie Coleman was light years ahead of us, And you just felt that presence of it's over.
Yeah.
It's
when you go
backstage now, guys strip down. I don't think they say, man, it's over.
Huh.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you were there in 2016, Phil. When you saw Phil with everybody, you didn't see that gap between him and everybody else?
No.
You
didn't say it's over.
Right.
No, after prejudging one, you'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, it looks like this is what's going to happen. Because it's always, depending how Dexter come in, Dexter can push him.
Sure.
And then you got
Rami, you got Bonac.
you got, and then you have Roden.
Yeah.
So it's no light year difference here. It's not.
I mean, maybe that's more exciting though, because as a fan, wouldn't you rather see a fight?
Put it this way. Dorian Yates could come out off.
Yes.
Still win.
Yeah.
He'd come out there with half of a bicep and win because that's what I'm talking about. Ronnie Coleman could come out 80% and still win.
And he did, yeah.
And blow everybody else away. And that's what happened.
Right.
Phil Heath can't come out 80%.
Interesting, yeah.
It's close because you got guys that, if Phil is on, then Phil will win. But if he's something off, you got a lot of guys that'll pop right in that spot.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about, and another thing, Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates, these guys had 20 pounds. There's a 20-pound, 30-pound muscle difference.
Right.
Than me. I was the next one in line. I was competing 245, sometimes, 248. But Yates was coming out and 250s, 260s, 268.
Yeah.
You know?
And then Ronnie, goodness gracious.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking 30 pounds of muscle, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And Ronnie had such a wide range of weights. I think he was like in the 240s at one of his early Olympic wins.
Something. Yeah.
And then, 296.
Yeah. 278.
286.
I mean, come on. And this is Mr. Olympia. You can't get close. Now Mr. Olympia, how much does Mr. Olympia weigh now?
250.
248. Yeah. You see?
And Ronnie's somewhere around, we don't know, 290, 300.
Right. So it didn't go from boom, 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 right?
Right.
So, and then you got Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was a big dude too, man.
Absolutely.
Can't forget about Jay.
Jay was like
Jay,
260 on a bad day.
260s, hard, let's not forget about Jay.
Wow.
So other words, that was a difference back then to what I see now, what I felt when I was on stage.
Yeah.
It was those guys were light years ahead of us. All due respect. We were there holding it down. But, that's the difference.
A couple more quick questions and we're done. Jay Hammett wants to know, do you see yourself returning to acting?
Jay Hammett, what's up, Jay? How you doing, man? Yeah, I know Jay, of course.
Of course.
If the opportunity comes, Jay, yeah, I'll jump on it. And I know Jay's produced some stuff out there and everything. So if anything comes along, if God opens up that door, of course, man, it's a side that I love.
Why wouldn't you? Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Last question from Champ Maria, local bodybuilder in my area, wants to know, do you have any unfinished business in the sport other than winning a standout? Or did you you did everything you wanted to do?
Yeah, I did everything I wanted to do. I mean, the film that just came out, Born to Overcome, that was it for me. That put the flame fire out. So I'm here to inspire you guys, to give it back to you guys, to just show other people that no matter what you're faced with in life, as long as you continue to move forward, put God in the center of it, you'll find your purpose, and that's it.
Right on. All right, well, that's a great way to close it out. This time I won't forget the thing that we do.
1, 2, 3.
Boom. Thank you for watching How I See It with Kevin Levrone, brought to you by Levrone Supplements. We'll see you next time.